everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Glow Podcast. We have a very exciting guest here with us today, Dr. Waples from Restore Med Spa. For those of you just joining the podcast, we are tailored marketing and specialize in helping dermatologists, skincare clinics, and aesthetic clinics grow their revenue and scale their businesses. So if you want to learn more about how to take your practice to the next level, just drop a comment or a DM and I'm happy to help you. Dr. Waples, we're so excited to have you here today. And if you just kind of want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us a little bit more about who you are, that would be amazing.
Absolutely. So my name is Dr. Flora Waples. I am a physician. I've been a physician for about, 20 years, which is just the most alarming thing to say. I've been full-time in aesthetics for almost 14 years. We opened our first Restore location about 14 years ago here in Denver. And we have 3 locations that are open and running now. Our 4th location, we just signed the lease for 2 weeks ago. So we are going to have 4 locations, fingers crossed, right, in about 9 months. And my focus really is, it is making aging optional. That is the focus of our clinic. And that is both from the outside in and the inside out. So we do, of course, all the aesthetics, all the fun stuff. We do the lasers and the tox and the fillers and all of those wonderful things. And then we also do sort of anti-aging and a hormone optimization medicine. And so that's sort of from the inside out. So you can feel as good as you look and look as good as you feel. That's really us in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that holistic approach to it where you're like, okay, we want to, of course, give you Botox, filler, all the things for the outside, but also the inside. And I feel like hormone therapy too is kind of a thing that is yes, and it's sort of like new. Like I don't think it's very new, but I feel like people talking about it has kind of come to fruition over the past like 5 or 10 years. It's become a lot more of a popular topic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, hormone therapy is actually quite old. People have been, like back in, I guess the 18 and 1900s, people used to eat, like bull testicles. But what they were doing there was they were ingesting testosterone. And testosterone is common enough across different species that it worked. So people have been trying to improve their hormone status for hundreds of years. And it was actually quite common in the US up until about the 1990s, which is when the WHI first came out. And it just absolutely plummeted. And only in the last sort of, as you said, about 5 years, it's sort of become permissible to talk about in public again. And it's absolutely exciting medicine. It's fascinating medicine. I am on it. I love it. All my family's on it. They love it. But yeah, it's had quite it's fluctuated over the years in terms of how acceptable it is kind of in the mainstream.
Yeah. And why do you think that is? Like, why do you think that it's fluctuated so much? Like, what were some of the things that were either researched or said about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the biggest thing, and also just a caveat to that, hormone therapy replacement is only controversial in the US. In Europe, in every other developed country in the world, it's considered the standard of care for everybody who is, sort of in their mid 40s or 50s or moving through that stage of life. So in the US, however, we had a study called the WHI, and it's called the Women's Health Initiative. It came out in the 90s, and it's kind of this tragic story. There are people out there who think it's a whole conspiracy with Big Pharma and all that stuff. I don't think it's a conspiracy. I think everyone was trying to do the very best science they could with the tools they had at hand. But what happened with the WHI, hormone replacement was very common. And in the US, the law is that you cannot patent anything that's made inside the human body. Which makes sense, right? I mean, you can't have Pfizer suing teenage boys for making testosterone, right? Like, it is reasonable how that law is in place. But because you cannot patent anything that's made normally in the human body, in order for us to have, patentable drugs that could be marketed on a large scale and FDA approved on a large scale, the pharmaceutical companies that did the big initial studies had to use synthetic and animal-produced hormones because they couldn't get a patent on the human hormones. So, again, I don't think there was any kind of malintent there. It's just they needed a drug that if they're going to spend $1 billion on a study, they need a drug they can patent and sell. Yeah. So the Women's Health Initiative, the purpose of that study was to prove that hormone replacement therapy not only made people feel better, but that wasn't the main point. The point was that it prevented cardiovascular disease and prevented osteoporosis and other diseases that impact us later in life. It was actually a prevention study. But unfortunately, they had to use synthetic hormones. Estrogen they used was equine estrogen. It was from horses. Premarin stands for pregnant mare urine. That's where the name of the medicine comes from. So they used estrogen from horses, and they used progesterone. They used a synthetic progesterone called medroxyprogesterone acetate. Well, the problem is They chose molecules that bind really, really tightly to the receptor because they wanted the study to work. They wanted to get the results. And again, it makes complete sense. Unfortunately, when you use hormones that are not native to the human body, you have some very nasty side effects. And in the case of WHI, what they got was heart attacks, strokes, and breast cancer. And so there was this huge panic. I'm young enough, I remember my mom was on hormone replacement therapy, and there was headlines, blaring on the evening news back when there was evening news, hormones cause cancer and hormones cause heart attacks and everyone should be off hormones. There's this huge panic. And basically, we went from sort of, 60 to 70% of women receiving hormone replacement therapy. It dropped to, about 10%, almost zero. Come to find out 20 years later, when we were able to compare this to the study of biological hormones, bioidentical hormones, the hormones that are actually produced by the human body. Biological hormones don't have those side effects. Bioidentical hormones don't cause those things. And it's the rise of that knowledge, the rise of the bioidentical hormones, where we can say, that study, it was absolutely correct. It was good science, but we were not testing what is actually capable today, what we're capable of doing today. And then the way we compare that is in Europe, they always use bioidentical hormones because they don't need the same patent laws. So all the big European studies all showed that it decreased, all-cause mortality by 30% across the board. And so the fact that we can use bioidentical hormones, that's what's made the difference, my opinion.
Wow. That's amazing. I haven't heard of that study before, so it's very, very interesting. And I mean, you can see how you would get completely different results when you're using either horse hormones or human hormones,
Hindsight is, at the time, I mean, you got to remember,
Exactly.
this is done in the 70s and 80s. I mean, almost 50 years ago now. Like, they were doing the best they could, but it had the effects of it were pretty unfortunate. But bioidentical hormones, we've got them now. They work beautifully, and those things are not an issue anymore. So that's really nice for me.
Yeah. No, and also like all of the patients and clients too that are using these things, because obviously you can see amazing results with it. And do you want to just speak to some of the reasons that your patients are coming to you for hormone therapy?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I think the idea that's out there in the world is that hormone replacement therapy is to treat menopause. And that's like a small piece of what it is. So the real issue is that our bodies are designed to last, or actually taking a step back. If I think about the story of our lives, this is how when I'm doing a consult with my patients, I say, we all know what the story of our lives looks like. We all have this intuitive grasp, right? From the time you're born to the time you're about, your mid-teens, early 20s, you're getting better every day physically, right? You're getting stronger every day. You're faster every day. Your hair is thicker. Your skin looks better. Like, your body is improving every day, because that's the period of time where your hormone levels are going from essentially zero when you're a kid to adult levels. And then you have 10 or 20 years, for the time you're mid-20s to 30s, mid-30s, late 30s, depending on your genetics, where you feel and function optimally. Your hormone levels are at their adult level, and you can, get up, you can go run a marathon, stay up all night drinking, eat pizza the next day. You feel great, like there's nothing that can stop you, and you have no idea how good you have it, And you just, you feel and function in this incredibly vital manner. And then when we hit kind of our mid-40s, depending on the individual, again, it can be early 40s, it can be late 40s, the way we feel and function starts to decline. And basically what happens is all of our hormone levels, I have this graph where it's like you're a teenager, you're in your 20s and 30s, and then when you hit your 40s, all of your major hormones plummet. And as those things happen, you start to hear people say things like, I can't do the things I used to be able to do. Boy, I'm getting older, feeling it, and it's not, if menopause is one of the things that happens in that stage, but also you're tired all the time. You're gaining weight because your metabolism slows down. You can't sleep. You lose your desire for your partner. Your joints hurt. Your muscles hurt. Like, you just can't. Your body doesn't feel and function. It's like gears are grinding, And the reason it happens are basically our entire endocrine system, the system that makes all of our major hormones, basically stops. It quits, kind of in our 40s and 50s. And the reason it does that is because our bodies were never designed to last longer than about 50 years. Without modern medicine, humans live about 40 to 50 years. And we can do that pretty well, right? But for those years from like 45 to like 85, those are not years that our bodies are designed, to function. So what we're doing with hormone replacement is when we raise our hormone levels back to that level where they are in like the 20s and 30s, you can feel and function like you do in your 20s and 30s. So does it treat menopause? Absolutely. But also, it gives you your energy back. It gives you your vitality back. All of a sudden, all of a sudden you can exercise again. You desire your partner again. So like when I was 42, I was about 20 or 30 pounds overweight. I was pre-diabetic. woke up every night about 2 or 3 a.m. and was awake for a couple of hours. And this is very normal for a 40-year-old woman. This is pretty standard. You know? I was anxious and stressed all the time. Like my brain wasn't working as well as I felt like it should. And I went to my primary care doc, who's a lovely woman, smart, personal friend. And I said, I'm gaining weight. I have no energy. I'm anxious and stressed all the time. I have no desire for my partner. All these things are happening. I'm having hot flashes. Like, all these things are happening. I feel like my body is just breaking down. And she said to me, she's like, well, Flora, she's like, you're a woman in your mid-40s. How do you expect to feel? And I was like, oh God, and she's not wrong. She's not wrong. Like, that is how people feel in their mid-40s. But I told her, I was like, Carolyn, I was like, listen, I was like, I love you and I respect you. And we trained in the same institution. I know why that is how you view, the aging process. I was like, I cannot accept that the next 40 years of my life are years of decline. That's just not something that I can accept. And so that's when I did my fellowship in hormone replacement medicine, and that's when I started doing it. And now I'm 47. I'm in the best shape of my life. I'm training for an ultra marathon.
Wow.
Like literally the best shape of my life. I feel and function the way I did in my 30s, and it is such a blessing and such a gift. And that's what we give to our patients, or try to give to our patients, is that we give them their vitality back.
Yeah.
And that is a big thing for someone in their 40s.
Yeah, I feel like just even hearing like your personal story with it, that's so amazing, to go from like, okay, you're like in this state of decline to now you're training to do an ultra marathon.
Just training. Like, it's easy to train, until I actually do it, I don't get any credit, but we're gonna give it a shot.
No, that's amazing. So when your patients come to you, or even like with the case of yourself as well, like, how did you know which hormones you need to be taking? Do you run tests and kind of see, or is it typically like, okay, we know these patterns?
Absolutely. I mean, it's both.
Yeah.
There definitely are patterns. In ladies, testosterone tends to drop off in the late 30s, progesterone kind of mid 30s, and estrogen's the last. So there's definitely patterns. With our patients, when they come in, we have them do a sort of very in-depth assessment. We have them do a bunch of questionnaires where we rate the symptoms that are associated with different hormones, and we have scores. And then, of course, we draw blood tests as well. And it's really a combination of all those things. It's how the patient feels, what the patient's goals are, and then what the patient's blood work is. And we take all those things together, and that's how we kind of build our care plans. So our care plans are very individualized because, while there are patterns in all of human biology, every human is also unique. And, so we have there are general guidelines, but we really kind of tailor it to the individual, based on those things.
And right now, like, obviously you're in Denver, but are you seeing a lot of people are doing kind of what you all are doing with the hormones, and with also offering some of the aesthetic treatments as well? Is that a common pattern, or are you guys kind of like at the forefront of doing that?
It's actually not that common. I think it's very common for an office to specialize in one and dabble in the other. So you'll see a lot of places that are like functional medicine places that do a lot of hormones, and that have like tox injections or like 1 or 2 lasers or something like that. And you see a lot of like really good dedicated aesthetics clinics that do like some weight loss, or something simple on the side. Honestly, to the best of my knowledge, I don't know of another practice in Denver that truly does both at a really high level. And for us, that was really important. It's,
Yeah.
like I'm vain as hell. Like, I really am, and I own that. And I don't want to just look good, and I don't want to just feel good. I really want them both. I want them both.
Yeah.
And so I built the practice really as I'm a very selfish person. I'm like, what do I want? Let's make that available. And so honestly, there's very few people who really do what we.
Yeah, I haven't heard a lot because, like, I feel like it is either one or the other. So I love that you guys have both, because I feel like that really sets you apart, because the two things, like you already said, they go so hand in hand, Like, if you're not looking good, you're not feeling good. If you're not feeling good, you're not looking good,
Right, exactly, and so much of our medical system in this country, and I'm sure this doesn't come as a surprise to you, it's all disease focused, and that's important because fixing disease is a really, really important thing. Like, you got to do that. But there's really no place in our sort of standard medical care, insurance-based medical care, for the prevention of disease and for the prolongation of wellness and vitality. And those are the holes that we plug. I think it's really important. I would love it if, insurance companies and the whole medical system changed, and the focus was on prevention and preservation of wellness as opposed to, combating disease. I would love that. I don't see it happening soon. That's the space that we fill.
Yeah, no, I think that that's amazing. And I think it is really important what you said, like the preservation of wellness rather than
Mm.
like us just going in and fixing problems that are already there. It's like, how can we stop these problems from happening? You know? So I completely agree with you. What innovations right now are you most excited for, either within aesthetics or also within hormone therapy or really anywhere within the medical industry? What are you like, oh, this is so
Oh,
exciting?
no. Hormone therapy is very, very, very exciting, but the science is pretty settled. There has not
Yeah.
been anything, human endocrinology, we know what it is, we know how to do it. And what I am most excited about, honestly, is the regenerative medicine revolution, which is coming. And not even to say coming, we are in the beginning stages of it. Like when a wave kind of builds, and like first it's this little thing, and then it kind of grows. We're in the beginning of a revolution in medicine, which is extremely exciting. And basically the idea is this. Our bodies have the capability to heal, right? And we know this because you cut your arm and new skin grows, right? I mean, we have healing capability. But our healing capability, our body keeps it under really, really, really tight control because you don't want just like to grow another arm out of your shoulder. Like that would be a major problem for a
Yeah.
multicellular organism. You can't just have your body regenerating all over the place. So your body keeps it under really tight control. We are starting to figure out how to harness that regenerative ability. And what that means is instead of say, let's take filler for an example. Filler used to be, or well, still is, the majority of filler is hyaluronic acid. It's a synthetic molecule that's made in a factory, which there's nothing wrong with that. And we inject it because we lose all this structural volume across our midface as we get older. And as we lose that volume, our face kind of slumps, right? We get hollows and folds because we've lost that structural support. And so we take hyaluronic acid fillers and we inject them, we replace that lost volume, and we pick the face back up and it looks fantastic, right? I have it in my face, everyone has it in their face, like it's a wonderful tool. However, what the new sort of, again, this wave of regenerative stuff is we are figuring out how we can inject regenerative tools so that you just grow your own tissue back. Because
Yeah.
that's really the holy grail. Like dermal fillers, they're fantastic. They're definitely better than not having dermal fillers, but they don't always look exactly natural because they're not. Sometimes
Yeah.
people's faces don't move exactly the way they're supposed to move. Sometimes it just doesn't look exactly right. Whereas if you can actually regenerate someone's own tissue with like biofillers and things of that nature, it looks 100% natural because it is.
Yeah.
And that's where the field is going. So regenerative medicine, both using tools to induce the skin to regenerate or using, like in the case of biofillers, we use a patient's own plasma and we use that as a filler, which then sort of induces the skin to regenerate. So really regenerative medicine is replacing sort of synthetic replacement medicine, if you call it that. And that is
Yeah.
super exciting and it looks awesome. I'll tell you, this is the way that I always judge. I look at the women in Hollywood. 10 years ago, they all looked a little funny, didn't they? Like, there was some stuff that just wasn't quite right. That was like the height of the dermal filler revolution. And about like 5 years ago, ladies, again, in their 60s and 70s, like young ladies always look fantastic because y'all are fantastic, but like the ladies in like their 40s, 50s, and 60s, they started to look just fabulous. Like there's
Yeah.
some ladies out and then they're like 60, 70 years old and they just are and natural. They look beautiful and ageless and 100% natural. And when that started happening in Hollywood, I was like, someone's figured out something. And
Yeah.
that's when I hit the journals and I figure out like, okay, what research has been done? Like, what is it that they're doing? And it's yes, the bioregeneratives. They're just absolutely amazing. So I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And where are we kind of, because I feel like that's something that's not as commonplace that you don't hear about when you typically go to like your like local medical spa or like your dermatologist even. I don't think that that's something that everyone has access to yet. So where are we at kind of with that? Because obviously some people do have access to it.
Some people do. Well, generally speaking, it takes about 10 years for any new procedure to kind of percolate through the whole community.
Yeah.
Like when people first figure it out, it's first going to come out in the sort of the most cutting edge places. It's sort of like the top end guys in LA or New York or Miami. Those are going to be
Yeah.
the people that sort of figure out these new things first. And then it's going to come to sort of the, every city, every region has a couple of top tier places, and I'm very, very lucky and hopefully I'm not bragging when I say the Restore is one of those.
Yeah, I
So it
believe
comes
you.
to our tier next, and then it kind of filters down to the smaller, more local places. And I'll also say that biologicals, there's an interesting profit motive problem.
No.
So I think the number is 85 to 90% of medical aesthetics practices in this country are single provider.
Okay.
One doc or PA or NP, a couple of assistants, a couple of front desk people, one location.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. However, when the person who is in charge of staying at the forefront of the medicine is in the treatment room all the time, they don't have time to build new procedures. They don't have time to do the research and build things out.
Yeah.
The way that the pharmaceutical companies get their new inventions into the hands of the providers is they send reps out, and then the reps will do educational talks and different things. They pay for trainings, et cetera, and so forth. Now, biologicals are not very profitable because that same problem we talked about earlier. You can't patent a person's plasma.
Yeah.
There's no big pharmaceutical company that's sponsoring community education for most of the biological agents.
Okay.
So the only people who can figure out how to use them and who can learn how to use them and bring them into their practices are people where, I'm going to say the doc, but let's say that the person who's on the top of the medical side of the organization has enough free time, is out of the treatment room enough that they can be out doing the research and getting the education and doing the work that is necessary to bring those things into their practice when they're not being supported by a large pharmaceutical. So, for example, Allergan, Merck's, Galderma, they have HA fillers. Insane profit.
Yeah.
They're not going to sell biofillers because the biofiller, the patient is the factory. Your profit margin is much, much, much smaller. So they're not doing community education on that. It's going to take a longer time to get out. And that's a shame because I think it's better for our patients. But nonetheless, that's one of the reasons why you're only going to see it in places where they have like multiple locations, because those are the only practices that are large enough where they can support a doc who's doing the things I'm doing, which is, going out and doing that research. If I was in a treatment room, doing talks all day, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
It's just, there's no way. So that's part of the reason behind it.
No, I mean, that makes sense too. And like you said, the big people in the space, the pharmaceutical companies, they're not going to be talking about it because they're not making as big of a profit. So like,
I don't want to ignore it. Yeah, I do.
yeah, they're like, this doesn't exist. Like, let's just.
And it makes them nervous, but it's coming regardless, because whenever there's something that is awesome for patients and also works really well, it'll come regardless. And they'll eventually bow to it, but they're going to kind of hold on as long as they can. I don't blame them for that. Like, that's their livelihood, but it's coming.
It's very, very cool too to hear about, because it is something that, some women, I do feel like, and men as well, are a little bit more maybe on the cautious side with filler, because you see the worst examples of it sometimes. You don't always see the best examples when obviously most people come out, they look amazing, they look better.
Like the best examples, you just go, God, she looks great.
Exactly.
So you see a lot of good filler, but you just don't know that you're seeing good filler. But whereas when you see bad filler, you're like, oh, that's bad filler. That's very easy to spot. So there is a little bit of a observer bias there. But yeah, no. I always tell my patients, I'm like, you've seen a lot of good filler. You just don't know.
Yeah. You're right. I'm sure more people than not, you're like that you talk to, they probably have it, especially if they are over a certain age, because we already kind of talked about what happens as you get older. But I feel like people would maybe be even more willing to try it with the biofiller, just with that, knowing that it's not a foreign agent kind of.
So I think so. And also, it causes less complications. Like hyaluronic fillers, again, they're awesome. I have them in my face. I've injected them for years, and they work really, really well the vast majority of the time. But anything that's not native to our body is every now and then going to run into a problem, and the nice thing about a patient's plasma is that it's 100% native to that patient. Like, you can't have an allergic reaction against it. It came out of your own vessels, so it is safer. And it looks more natural, and I think a lot of patients do kind of resonate with that idea of this is me. This is still me. It's not something artificial. It's not something fake. It's still me. And I think patients like that. Yeah.
No, for sure. I definitely agree with you. And we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but you said obviously you guys have 3 locations right now, kind of around the Denver and Boulder area, and you're planning on opening a 4th location. So how do you kind of balance overseeing multiple locations and then also doing your research on like what's the newest innovations in the space? And then also it sounds like you work with patients as well. So how do you balance all of these daily roles?
Well, but my sister, my business partner is my sister. And one of the phrases that she always uses is she says, if you want to go fast, you go by yourself. And if you want to go far, you go as a team. That's
Yeah.
kind of one of her little mantras. And it's really, really true. Like, there's no way one person can carry that. There just is no possible way. And so if you
Yeah.
really want to build something that's bigger than yourself and that touches more people than you can lay your own hands on, you need to have a team. And one of my biggest responsibilities now is finding amazing, amazing, amazing people. That's what I dedicate the vast majority of my time to, is finding people who can be a part of our team, because that's what allows us to grow. For every job that I post, I'll usually kind of go through about 100 people for every one that I hire. We are quite
Yeah.
lucky that our reputation is such that we have those numbers, that many people will apply to us for each position we open, and that allows us to really get the just really, really amazing people. Balance it is I give it to other people. That's the only way you can. You can't balance it all yourself. And so I'm blessed with an absolutely incredible clinical team, an incredible operations team. I have an assistant medical director who's just a beast. Without those people, I couldn't do anything. So
Yeah.
I sit here and talk to you, but it's not, I rest on the work of so many people, and I'm so lucky to have them.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like it really does take a team, especially when you are running multiple locations like you are. You need good people with you. And I think your sister probably said it best, like it really is true. If you want to get somewhere and you want to be strong, you kind of have to do it with a group of people that you really trust. And besides opening your new location, which is awesome, what part of Colorado did you say that was going to be in? Is it also in Denver?
That's also in Denver. So our first two locations are in sort of the northeast and the northwest of Denver, and then we have a location in Boulder, and this one's going to be kind of in the south part of Denver. And then
Okay.
we're probably going to get two or three more in sort of the Denver metro area, and then we'll start, branching
Moving.
out. And we'll see,
Yes.
we'll see, but that'll be probably another 2-3 years. But this one's in South Denver.
Awesome. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. So besides opening the new location, what are some other big goals that you have for the next year? I guess I would say with it can be, treatments or opening the new location, getting another location going, whatever those goals may be.
This year, our goal is to get 4 all the way open and to have number 5 started.
Okay.
And then my second goal is, we rolled out a bunch of new procedures on the clinical side this year. The biofillers is a big one. We brought on a really cool advanced laser that we're just absolutely loving. We're using a lot of the biological regeneratives that are coming out of Europe that are finally starting to get approved here in the States.
Wow, that's awesome.
So on the clinical side, like my goal is really to finish rolling those out and get those firmly established, because, and again, I hope I don't sound like just too grandiose, but being able to truly regenerate people from the inside out and the outside in, there's not a lot of places that can do that. And so if we want to grow and if we want to touch as many lives as we can, that is our competitive advantage. That's what makes us special, is we offer a different kind of medicine. And my job is to make that really good. And then Dominique's job is to, find new locations and get them open,
Yeah.
so so that is my focus this year, is getting those completely integrated into our clinic and really getting those perfect so that we can use that as a platform, from which to grow.
That's awesome. So you all have the biofillers that's awesome. That's crazy. When did you get them there?
Got them all over the place. We started, something that I've been watching for a long time. People have been working on this for about 10 or 15 years. Every time I go to a conference, I listen to the lectures. I'm like, they're getting closer, but it's not quite ready for prime time. And they're getting closer, but it's not quite ready, And last year when I went to the big yearly aesthetic conference, it's in Vegas every year. And I went there and I listened to the lectures, and I was like, yeah, they got it. They nailed it. They do. And so we've been working on bringing it to the clinic and getting all our injectors trained and getting our protocols built and everything. We've been working on that since fall. And
Wow.
we've had a soft rollout for the last 3 months, and then we're doing the full rollout in 2 weeks. And it's just been amazing. I mean, it is just better. And that is a trite thing to say, but it just is. And we're so really excited about that.
That's
I mean, I'm 37
amazing.
years old. I'm old. I am an old person.
You look great.
I better, because I have a team that works on this stuff, and like, if I can't do it with all the tools at my disposal, then what hope does anyone have, So, so I tell my patients, I'm like, yeah, I better look good, because good God, like, I do all the things.
Yeah, no, you do. You look great. And like you said, you feel great. This is the best you felt in your life. And so like, that's what it's all about. That's what you want for really all of your patients, right?
Yeah, I really do. You know, I tell my patients, I'm like, opening up this practice is like an alcoholic opening a bar. I was like, I'm my own best, my own best customer.
I absolutely love that. And so that was kind of most of my questions. Is there anything else that you want to share that you're super excited about? I know you've shared definitely the biofillers and then also opening the new location. Is there anything else that you guys have that's really super exciting going on?
I mean, the other thing I would say, is, and this is not a sea change, and the biofillers is really a sea change, But the other thing that I think is cool in sort of the aesthetics field right now is lasers. It's been this steady sort of, I think of it almost like troops marching from, lasers getting less and less downtime, less and less pain, and better results.
Yeah.
And when I first started in this field, 15 years ago, we were still using like the big CO2 lasers, and they worked. I mean, they'd take 10 years off in the treatment. They were fantastic, but you were red for 2 months. You looked like literally looked like a burn victim for 10 days. You couldn't leave the house. There was like general anesthesia. I mean, it was a big deal. And
Yeah.
in this last sort of 20-year time, the modern lasers and the one that we just switched out our deck and brought on a new laser to our practice as a whole, it's just astounding. Like it can get you those big gun results. Like it can give you takes 10 years off. And it's like you're red for a day, pink for a day, you can wear makeup the next day, you can leave the house. Like just the downtime is nothing. It's nothing
Yeah.
whatsoever. And it's being able to fit that into the budgets and lifestyle of a professional woman. The older lasers, the only people that could do that are people who are retired or who were like trophy wives, because a professional woman
Yeah.
can't take 3 weeks off of work to heal from a laser. Like that's just not a thing, right? In today's world, you need to be able to get in on a Thursday, work from home on a Friday, and be back at work on Monday and look
Yeah.
normal enough. You don't need to look totally normal, but you need to look normal enough. You gotta tell people like, oh, I got a sunburn, or something.
Yeah.
And have it work. Every sort of 5 years, there's another revolution in laser technology, and this most recent one is just amazing. And you can get big gun results with just a couple of days of downtime, very little pain. There's no reason for anyone not to do it because it's fantastic. And so I'm very excited about that. I get it every couple months because, again, I own it. So,
Yeah. You're like, why not? I might as well.
But the lasers have revolutionized themselves again, and they are really very good. And that's
Yeah.
that's fun.
I haven't done any laser treatments before too, but from what I've heard also, as they've made more innovations in them, they've also made them a lot less painful. They're still not like painless, but they're not painful either.
Yeah,
like
nothing like
you
what
can
it used to be.
feel it, but it's not like excruciating pain or really pain at all. It's just you can tell,
Pleasant. You're aware of it. I'm certainly
Yeah.
not going to be like, you don't feel it. You do. But it's no more than, but it is a reasonable thing now. Like in the old
Yeah.
days, they literally used to have to bring people into the hospital, put them under general anesthesia, can put them completely asleep, intubate them, put them on a breathing machine, and then they would do the procedure because that was the only way a human could tolerate it. And now it's like, you're like, okay, this is not like awesome, but
Yeah.
it's a level. And it takes 10 minutes to do a face. I mean, it's just astounding. The technology is just awesome.
Yeah, no, that is amazing. That's very, very cool. I feel like lasers have come a long way and they're always making continuous improvements with them as well. So that is great. Let my audience know where they can find you.
Anybody who wants to know about our practice, I would encourage you to go to our website, which is just www.restoremedicalspa.com. Restore is RESTOR, no E, because we're very hip. And there's tons of information. There's videos of everything we do. There's videos of me talking about all of our stuff.
As well with the website too, and then also with the social media handles. So if you all want to find Dr. Waples or also Restore Medical Spa, then you'll be able to easily. Thank you so much for joining us again, and I really appreciate it. And thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you. It was a pleasure.
All right, bye.